All right, so we're moving on to hard light images now. And these first three images are very clearly defining hard light. This first image is by Megan, and we have the same subject that we had in the soft light image, but now she's photographing her through the blind, or the light's coming through the blinds, and it's creating these hard lines. So as we look here on the shadow, you can see the dark area from the shadow, and then this really hard line, and then the bright area. And this is how you can easily define hard light and soft light. She's at ISO 100, 55 millimeters, f5.6 at 1/50th of a second. I don't remember what your last shutter speed was, but you were a little bit slow and your subject moved a little bit. But here we see that you're nice and sharp, that there's no camera shake happening and your focus is spot on. We see all of the detail as we're looking at the places where the light is, right? On the bridge of her nose and on her lips and chin there. So you're nice and sharp in this image. So that was a good adjustment that you made. Your light is clearly hard light. There's no issue there. The composition is a little bit more static, having your subject centered. So just continue to play around with where you're putting your subject in the frame. And we can see that you did that in some of these images. And some of the images where we're able to see more of her face, we're not just able to see, the bright areas, but we can see more of the detail of her face are going to work better here. So we can see here she's looking, maybe you opened up the blinds a little bit more, but she's looking to the side and we see more detail on her face. This is working better. Even these exposures are working better for me. But compositionally, this is working better as you're pushing her off to the side, or here as you're pushing her off to the side. Okay, this image is by Tiffany, and again, very clear that this is hard light. We have a bright area and a dark area, and there's a line showing where that change is. You're at ISO 100, 57 millimeters, f5 at 1/80th of a second. Those settings all look good, and last time I was a little concerned about the focus being behind your subject's eyes. Here it looks like it's right on, so you don't have that issue in this image. Put this in the develop module really quick and see if we're losing any detail. And we are on the shirt, but like I said in the last image, that doesn't bother me. I just want to make sure that this is all holding on to detail, and it looks like we are. You might pull back like 1/3 of a stop so you can have a little bit more detail in this area, but I'm glad to see that none of that's getting blown out. So great example of hard light, good exposure, maybe 1/3 of a stop less exposure would be even better. Composition again is a little bit static, but it feels more, feels a little bit more complex because of the lines coming down are creating some interest, and he's looking away from the camera. When he's looking straight at the camera, it's a little bit more static, but this adds that little bit of dimension. And just seeing how you're posing him and moving around, that makes me I'm happy to see that effort that's being put into that. Make sure you get your shutter speed and aperture on these. You can do that in that print module just by choosing to include that. That's in the video I've posted, so if you have questions about that, let me know. In another clear example of hard light, this image is by Kayla, ISO 400, 20 millimeters, f5.6 at 1/80th of a second. So those settings all look good. We can see the hard light. We can see the shadow from her hair, the shadow from her nose, the shadow behind her are all very distinguished. That's showing us that this is hard light. Hard light can be harsh, right? It can, I don't know, show lines and imperfections and whatnot. But having your subject turn more towards the light, or if it's the middle of the day, look up towards the sun can soften some of that. So here the light's hitting her pretty directly, but because she's facing that light more than having this shadow come all the way across her, right? That's working better to soften the quality of that. So nice job with how you posed her in this harder light. See her different compositions here. I mean, you stayed close with all of them. You got her to laugh in some of them. And you just played a little bit around with the frame. Now, what I would say looking at all of these is that some of these have too much negative space above her head. Where here, this is a better framing when you're nice and close and allowing us to not have that negative space. That's not really adding to the image. So that would be an adjustment I would make on some of these images here. But I think you edited down to pretty good images on both sides. All right, so this image is by Brad, and this is kind of a tricky image. So you're in ISO 100, 50 millimeters, f1.8 at 1/60th of a second. The light that's coming from the window is obviously hard light. It's coming from behind the subject. It's backlighting the subject. It's creating this lens flare in your camera lens, which people love that, right? When you shoot right into the sun, you can get lens flare, and that's what this is. That's what all of this is as well. People love doing that. It can work really well, and it can be a huge distraction sometimes. In this case, it's working really well for you. So the light is hard light coming through the window. The light on your subject's face is softer light. Because she's backlit, because that light's not shining on her face, the light that's on her face is coming all the way around. It's wrapping all the way around her nose, and it's slowly moving to shadow over here, but there's no hard line like we see in an image like this, right? This is clearly hard light. So you utilized hard light in this, no question about that. The light actually on your subject is softer light because she's backlit, and this is more of the reflection of the light in the room that's coming back on her. If we look at your contact sheet, there's no question to me that you understand the difference between hard and soft light. You have soft light here, you have hard light, all of these examples of hard light. Some get a little out of focus there. Here you're still using that hard light. It's in the same photo shoot, right? But you've changed the light that's actually on your subject. So an image like this is a great example of hard light with the lines coming across her. This is really interesting to me with the hard light with the lines coming across her, but you were still utilizing hard light in the image that you turned in, just kind of in a tricky way so that you had more pleasing light on her face.